Writing section, summarize text method. Let's look at the method to answer questions of this type. We'll look at the method in a step-by-step manner with the help of an example. Before we start, a quick recap of the question type. So instructions at the top, then you see the text, and in the text box at the bottom, you have to write your summary. Quite simple, and you will have 10 minutes for that. The method that we recommend and we use is this. The very first step, obviously, you have to start by reading the text. When you read the text, your goal should be, the first and foremost goal should be to understand the theme of the text. Once you understand the theme, the central idea of the text, that what the text is about, the next step is to understand the arguments. So now you can focus on that part of the text which deal with the arguments, right? And these are what you call the key points, something that express the opinion of the writer or something that the writer is trying to convince you about. So those are the arguments. After that, you have to understand the examples. Why you need to understand the examples? So that essentially to ignore them. Your summary, you only have a few words, and that should focus entirely on the key ideas of the text. You don't want to fill in unnecessary examples. Therefore, just understand briefly which parts of the text are not relevant, that it is supplementary information, it's an example, it's there to support the key point. So you understand that. After that, you can shortlist a few sentences to focus on. So these are the sentences where the arguments are explained. So you shortlist those sentences, and then the next step is to rephrase and or combine those sentences. Now, I do say rephrase and combine, or rephrase or combine those sentences, but you don't always have to do that. So shortlist the sentences doesn't necessarily mean that you take the sentences as it is and you combine them. You do that if your writing skill is not very good. Let's say you can't find any other way of writing the summary, you're finding it difficult, then yeah, the minimum that you can do is identify the key sentences and join them somehow. But what's the second better alternative? That is, you rephrase those sentences. And what's the best? The best is that you express the key idea entirely in your own way. Okay, often you don't even have to combine those sentences. You can express it in your own way. When we look at the guided example, I'll give you more examples of this. After that, once you have rephrased or combined the shortlisted sentences, you are ready with the summary. And the next step is to review it. So you can review it that it meets the form requirements, only one sentence and between 5 and 75 words. And then you also review it for grammatical correctness, that you're using the right vocabulary. Try not to repeat the same words from the text. Maybe you can find synonyms or better alternatives. Do that in the review. And once done, then you must submit the summary. Make sure that you explicitly submit it within the 10 minutes that you have. Don't think that once the time runs out, it will automatically submit. Submit it within the time limit, within 10 minutes. All right, now let's look at an example. I'll show you the text. Then you can pause the video. You can attempt the question and then follow along from the explanation. Here is the example question. I hope you have been able to write a good summary. Here's a sample summary response for you. Okay, now look at it. Let's look at the steps involved in writing this summary. So step one, you have to start by reading the text. And yes, you can start at the top. You don't always have to read each and everything. If you think you've got an idea of what it's about, you can jump a few sentences. For example, when I start reading this, spurred by the sense that disorderly behavior among students was increasing, referrals, thousands of referrals for bullying, etc. So I just read that, and that gives me an idea that here we are talking about some problem of discipline, bullying, behavior among school students. So the text is going to be something related to that. And then I can jump the next sentence, next couple of sentences. I don't need to read the whole sentence about police data. Okay? So don't think that you need to read each and every word. Your goal is to understand. So, okay, I got the idea what the text is about, what might follow from the first paragraph. Now I go to the second paragraph. So it shows a researcher from conducted a survey. Finally, the police department purchased a system to conduct incident mapping, main findings. So I just read that. And the next paragraph, then it tells me that they did something. So they took some steps to understand the problem. So what I'm trying to say is that when we say read the text, we don't necessarily mean that you have to read each and every word of the text. As soon as you get the confidence that, yes, I understand this part, I understand this paragraph, I understand this paragraph, you can go to the next. Your main goal is to just get the gist of this, yeah, because you're going to write a summary. Now, step 2, understand the theme. So as the way I was reading it, so the theme here, the first paragraph itself told me it's something to do with behavior problem among students, and the second paragraph explained that what was done, and the third paragraph again was about what the SRO did, and the fourth paragraph was about the results of all the steps that they took. So basically, the theme is about how they handled the problems of discipline and misbehavior among students. So that's what we call understanding the theme, and you don't need to read each and every word to understand the theme. After that, you understand the arguments. What are the key points? So one of the key points is that the researcher did a survey, and the SRO worked with social worker, university researcher, and they formed a response planning team. And the key point is that the results of this whole exercise, they were very dramatic. The problem was solved. So these are the key points. Next step is to understand the examples. Now, I say examples, but I also mean that additional information, supplementary information, which is not really necessary to, which, for example, even if it was not written in the text, it wouldn't make much difference to the meaning of the text. For example, in the first paragraph, if you look at the last sentence, police data showed that the juvenile complaints about disturbances, bullying, and assaults after school hours had increased, etc., in past 10 years. So, really, now, if even if you remove this, I'm still able to understand what the text is about. That there's a problem, that the disorderly behavior, disciplinary problems, bullying, etc., has been increasing rapidly, right? That's the problem. So the last, it's just supplementary information. He gave some example numbers to illustrate how much that increase has been. But it's supplementary information, so we can ignore it. Now, similarly, in the second paragraph, in the second sentence, interviews were conducted with students, teachers, and guidance counselors. Again, I don't really need to know this, because from the first sentence, I know that a survey was conducted, and pretty much that's sufficient. Similarly, in the last sentence of the second paragraph, 4 primary areas of concern, this. We don't need to go into that level of detail, because I'm just writing a summary. So at a high level, I've understood that the researcher did something, did a survey, and found the areas of concern, based upon which the SRO then coordinated a response planning team. So avoid the details. Why do you understand the details? Why do you identify the details? So that you can avoid writing about them in the text, so that you don't think that this is important. So you can avoid writing about them in the summary. All right, so now we understand that also. The next step is to shortlist sentences to focus. So these are the ones which helped me understand what the text is about, which I feel are the key points which contain the key information. And I've highlighted them in the red. Similarly, you can identify your sentences. If you want, you can briefly write them in your answer window, with the goal that you'll be combining them, rephrasing them, or working upon them. Okay? Don't just read from the text and type them in the answer window one after another and leave it at that. These are just the points. This is where now you need to focus on to write your final summary. So I have these, and there are different ways that these can be combined. So, for example, a simple way, if you just start from the beginning, the way the main text was, we just start with that. The disorderly behavior among students was increasing, because of which the school resource officer formed a response team that led to great decrease in incidents of bullying and suspension. Now, this is a good summary. Even though it repeats the same sentence, there's some repetition, but it at least captures the main information. You can do better. You can rephrase, you can write something like this. Due to the increase in disorderly behavior, formed a response planning team, etc. Or you can even write it like this. After careful research and study, the school resource officer organized a response planning team to respond to incidents of bullying and disorderly behavior in schools, which resulted in a sharp decrease in such incidents. Right? So as you can see, there are different ways. If you understand the key idea, then the best response is write a crisp, short sentence which clearly just explains that. Okay. The word limit is 5 to 75 words. Don't think that if I write 55 words, 60 words, 75 words, I'll get a higher mark. No, you won't. It will only increase the chances of grammatical errors or that you will end up writing something unnecessary. Sometimes even a response in words, that is enough if you have been able to capture the key points. So once you've written your summary, you can review what you've written. So as you can see here, we review. After careful research and study, the school resource officer organized a response to respond to incidents of bullying and disorderly behavior. Now, if I find that some word has been repeated again and again, maybe I can change that. So, for example, you can change disorderly to misbehavior if you want to. Other than that, check the spellings, check if there is any grammatical mistake, and avoid that. That's the purpose of this review. And once you've done that, simply submit it and you can go to the next question. So follow these steps. In the guided practice, we will look at each of these in much more detail.